This is Finance Career Launch, the show that helps you own your career. This podcast is just one component of the Finance Career Launch member community, which provides the training and support to help you develop, contribute, and advance. If you're not yet a member, go ahead and register for no charge by visiting financecareerlaunch.com and clicking that big blue button. When you do that, you'll get instant access to the video series, The 7 Pillars of a Successful Career in Finance. Hey there, this is David Mariano, and you're listening to episode number 66 of Finance Career Launch. If you're new here, welcome. It's great to have you. And if you've been around for a little while, you know that I normally take these midweek episodes to do a short little soundbite about a topic that's important to your career, or I take time to answer a listener question. Well, today we'll be doing something a little bit different, and I'll be kicking off a 4-week series about a career in investment banking. Now, one of the reasons that I'm doing this is because this is probably one of the most popular questions I get, and it's what I do for a living, so I can understand that people want to know about that and how they might be able to get into it or transition into it. I get a lot of questions about that. So I'll be taking us through just a 4-part series. This week, we'll start with reasons why investment banking is a great career path. Next week, we'll cover unique career paths within investment banking, different areas you could go into. Week number 3, I'll cover the truth about investment banking, because there's a lot of great things about it, but there's also kind of a dark side to it, and some things just you have to be prepared for, and things you might have to deal with that you either might not be expecting or just that are hard to deal with. And then the 4th week, I will, in as much detail as possible, but also trying to make it concise, tell you the story about how I became an investment banker, the steps I took to get into the business. And so hopefully you can learn a little bit from that. The other reason I want to cover this, though, is, and the reason I'm starting with why investment banking is a great career path, is I feel after the downturn in 2008, there was a really negative picture painted about the industry. And you see movies like The Big Short, which I love the movie, by the way. I thought it was great and entertaining and informing to me, too. Now, while a lot of that is probably true, the truth is I've always been in the middle market, the lower middle market, and a lot of that's just that stuff is just not even part of my world. I've never worked on transactions of that size, never mind been involved in kind of mortgage-backed securities. That's just not part of the middle market. That's kind of the purely Wall Street big bank stuff. But there's a ton of other great areas to be a part of if that kind of turned you off. And I know just we've experienced, and it's kind of created an opportunity for people coming out of MBA programs interested in the business, because there's just there's not as many people interested in it. So I want to take this time to just inform you about some of the stuff that I've seen and some of the great things that have been a part of my career. So this week, we'll be kicking off with reasons why investment banking is a great career path. So the first reason that I find this to be a great career path is the work itself is interesting. Being an investment banker gives you a really unique view of business. The clients you work with, the projects that you're working on you really don't get to touch it in a lot of other professions. You do in certain ways, accountants, lawyers, some insurance professionals, but as the banker, you kind of get to see the strategic side of things. And if that's what you enjoy, it can be really interesting for you. For example, a lot of what we do at our firm is M&A, mergers and acquisitions, and we advise buyers and sellers of businesses. Now, if you're on the buy side, which is actually the practice I run, I help companies make acquisitions, you really get to be a part of the strategic direction of the company. In a way, we are often like an outsourced corporate development arm of the company. So you really get to be involved with the strategy, with executing that strategy, with going out and finding companies, evaluating them to see if they fit with your client. And it's just a neat exercise, and it's very interesting work. And the people we get to work with are fascinating. Same thing if we're on the other side, if we're selling a business, often our clients are family owned, multi-generational sometimes, or just privately owned companies where these transactions are significant to these people. It's not like they're big public companies and it's just a financial transaction. Often there's a lot of emotion tied up in these things, which can be good and bad and makes it tough and interesting at the same time. But think of an owner, if they've spent 40, 50 years building a business, a lot of his or her assets are tied up in this company, and this can free up those assets to go into retirement or to do something different. So oftentimes these transactions have to happen for a private business owner if they don't have family in the business, if there's not another logical way to kind of get out and transition out of the business. These things have to happen. So we provide a significantly important service to a private business owner in these important times in their lives. And even if we are working for a bigger company for divesting a small piece of the company, those are still significant parts of the strategy, and they get to deploy that capital in different ways. So to me, it's just very interesting work. And if you find that interesting, you might enjoy this career path. I would say the same thing about the capital raising side. It's similar to either helping companies make acquisitions or selling strategic pieces, but you're helping a company grow. If you're raising capital, often we might be helping ownership transition between shareholders or between generations. So they're just significant transactions that are important. The last thing I'll say about the interesting part of the work is we get to really understand and appreciate valuation and what makes a business valuable, and often get to coach companies through some of those strategic initiatives to make their businesses more valuable. And if we're selling a company, we get to kind of help them realize that value. And if we're buying a business, we have to understand it from the buyer's point of view. But it's just really interesting to me to understand what a business is worth and how to figure that out. And so those are some of the things, some of the reasons that I think the work is very interesting, and it's a unique point of view. So those are if those things interest you, you might want to consider it. Now, the second reason that this is a great career path is if you're the type of person who wants to learn and grow, and just that's part of who you are, that you want to evolve as a human being, not and a business person, and you want to constantly improve your skills, and you don't like to sit idle, you don't like to be stagnant, this is a business that will do that for you. I've already kind of gone through some of the work, but it is intellectually challenging work, and you will be stretched at all levels. It's not as if you start out, you're learning the business, and then once you get more senior, it becomes easy. It's always intellectually and oftentimes emotionally challenging work, and you do get stretched. For example, when you start out as an analyst or an associate in those entry-level roles, you're often the analytical, the research backbone of the team, and you're learning complex financial and business topics, and you're really digging into the details, and you're often stretched as to what you think detail-oriented means. I mean, that it's a whole new level of detail and organization and research, and I think a lot of people who start out are surprised at how much you have to dig and how deep you have to dig sometimes. So some of the models, financial models, are very detailed. Some of the research is very detailed, and we really need to get into the weeds sometimes. But you also, as you're going through that, you start to understand business at a higher level, at a more strategic level, at a more comprehensive level. For instance, when we're selling a company, we often write materials about these businesses, and you really have to understand how the whole business works together to put these documents together and really communicate what this business is about. And same thing when we're helping our clients evaluate a company that they want to buy. You really need to begin to see not just from a financial point of view why this could be a good opportunity, but also why does this fit strategically? How does the culture fit into it? Do they have the right assets and equipment? There's their quality there? Do they have good enough safety? There's all sorts of things that we need to help our clients think about to really do our job well. And the last thing I'll say about at that entry level is you have to endure learning about these fundamentals. You have to be prepared to really stretch yourself to learn those fundamentals to then get to the next level, which we can talk about here in a second, which that mid-level, whether you're a VP or a director, this is often the time when you're really stretching your skills of managing driven and sometimes difficult people. Both your clients and colleagues can fit into this category of difficult people. But at the mid-level, you are running the process. You're often the quarterback, the coordinator. You're coordinating many people, timelines, schedules. I mean, deal teams can be easily up to 30 people when you factor in all the advisors and intermediaries. And often you are responsible for kind of keeping things moving and keeping things straight between all those parties, whether you need to facilitate getting information up people, setting up schedules, setting up calls. And it's a simple task, but it's so complex because of the amount of information and the number of people you're normally dealing with. So it's sometimes not fun, honestly, but you have to take joy in kind of the importance of this role. It's a critical role to be at this mid-level and kind of running the process and project managing each of these transactions. And you kind of have to enjoy how critical that is to get through it and do a good job every day. Otherwise, you can just feel like, I feel like I'm just, setting up meetings, which you are, but you have to kind of understand how that fits into the big picture. Now, when you get to the more senior levels, it doesn't get easier. Your communication, negotiation skills, and relationship building skills will be pushed to the limit. I would say that these roles at the senior levels are constantly about negotiation, whether it's to get hired with your client, with a new client, or even throughout the transaction process, you're continuously negotiating, not always negotiating, but you're kind of setting and resetting expectations for your clients, which in some ways it's negotiating. You're negotiating with the other side, with buyers or sellers, depending on what you're doing. And you're educating your client along the way too, which takes a ton of patience sometimes, because we do what we do every day, and our clients often haven't gone through it as many times as we have. There's a lot of education and kind of patient explanation that happens that you have to be okay with that. And it can get frustrating at times. But again, kind of keeping everything in perspective and understanding the importance of what we're doing is really critical. The other thing is just building relationships with very busy and demanding people, whether that be your clients or other service providers, lawyers, accountants, and other professionals that we deal with. It takes time to build those relationships so that at this level, you might be starting to bring in business and develop new client relationships, and it requires you to transition from those early analytical roles into a relationship building role, and it takes a lot of work to do that. Now, while this may be uncomfortable at times, it definitely forces you to learn and get better, and you have to want to improve yourself in these soft skills as well to really get to this point. You have to care about being a great communicator. You have to care about negotiation, and you have to care about building real relationships to survive, to thrive at this level. So that's the second. The second component is if you want to learn and grow, if that's the type of person you are, it's a great career path. The third component of why this is a great career path is just the personal rewards. Now, we already talked about the learning and personal growth you experience through this, which to me is a personal reward in and of itself. And there's obviously the financial rewards that people talk about with investment banking. And we'll in a later episode, we'll talk about how accurate that all is. But yes, you can do very well financially as an investment banker, and it's a fine career path. I'll just leave it at that for now. Now, one of the biggest things that I feel are a personal reward as a result of this career is the people that you interact with. There aren't many professions where you get to build a network as extensive as this, with people who are mostly high achievers, people who want to do well, who work really hard, who want to excel. If you look around at colleagues, there are a lot of people who went to great schools, had high grades, were, captain of their sports teams. They prove that at previous roles in their lives, there was high performance and there was evidence of working really hard. If those are the people you want to be around, this could be a great career path. It's also a rare opportunity to work with the clients we work with the CEO, with the CFO, with the owner of the business. Again, not many career paths where you get to do that and work on these high-level strategic transactions that I talked about in kind of point number one. And then the other parties. I really enjoy getting to know attorneys and accountants and other service providers that work on these transactions or work with similar types of clients. It's really a neat opportunity to get to know those people while we're working on a transaction, but also just in life. I mean, they're fun people to be around. And if you enjoy being around people like that, this could be a great career path for you. So just to recap, why investment banking is a great career path. Number one, the work itself is interesting. It gives you a unique view of business. Number two, if you want to learn and grow, if you have a personality where personal growth and learning is part of who you are, it's a great place to do that. And number three, there are personal rewards that you get from this. The learning that we just talked about, financial rewards, and then the network that you build, the people that you are around are a reward as well. So that's it for this first part of the 4-part series about investment banking. We'll be back next week to talk about different career paths within investment banking that you can consider. And hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think, and we'll talk to you again next week. If you enjoyed this episode and want the complete mixed media mentoring experience, head over to financecareerlaunch.com, click that big blue button, and register for your membership at no charge.